Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and talking about developments of Egypt's economic process. We're glad to be joined over the phone by Dr. Ahmed Shawky, advisory member of Egyptian Center for Economics and Strategic Studies. Good afternoon, sir. Dr. Ahmed, how do you view the state's efforts in supporting the country's economy amid the current challenges facing the world, including the Russian-Ukrainian crisis?
Okay, nowadays, the world economy and Egyptian economy suffer or faces from a huge crisis resulted from accumulated crises, geopolitics crisis followed by COVID-19 crisis, then now Russian-Ukrainian crisis. All these crises drive the world economy and the Egyptian economy to high prices for basic commodities and materials and high inflation rate. The Egyptian government and Central Bank of Egypt play an important role to face the current crisis through proactive procedures. As financial policies taken from the government, we saw disbursement of salaries and pensions increase earlier by about 3 months at April instead of July to support citizens. And that was an important point in facing high inflation and prices. Also, exemption from real estate taxes for factories at industrial sector for 5 years to encourage direct investment. On the other hand, if we look to monetary policies, the CBE, Central Bank of Egypt, raised interest rate by 1%, facing inflation pressures, and issuance of certificate by 80%, and also the supporting of international reserve by 44 tons of gold. All these procedures supported the Egyptian economy in facing current crisis, like what happened before at COVID-19 crisis, with growing GDP, gross domestic product, more than 3%, and the Egyptian economy at this time classified by second highest growth in GDP around the world at 2020.
Yeah. Well, sir, how far do you think the Russian-Ukrainian crisis had affected the trade volume in Egypt?
The trade volume in Egypt will affect directly by the crisis at both sides, import and export. So if we look to the export, the government export ban for some commodities like pasta and wheat, flour, beans for 3 months. And also the CBE made another procedure to make the governance for import by using letter of credit, and this procedure will reduce importing invoice at Egypt. That also will help to reduce the dollar demand and foreign currency pressures.
Yeah, sir, how would the latest Fed's decision to raise its interest 0.5% influence the pound's value and the market price?
According to internal economic indicators and the proactive procedures taken by CBE, based on economic reform program, I see the value of Egyptian pound will not affected or decreased by high percentage. As we noticed the last week, the performance of Egyptian pound has improved against dollar by 1%, about 18 piastres during the last week until today. So it will not affected by huge or big percentage.
The Central Bank of Egypt had announced Egypt's net international reserves rose slightly to $37.1 billion. How would you assess this rise?
To assess this point, we must notice that the international reserves increased by $41 million as at end of March It refers to stability of international reserve and the ability also to Egyptian economy to handle with crisis. How about that with the decrease? If we look back to the international reserve at COVID-19, it declined from 45 billion to 36 billion
Yeah.
by about 9 billion. And at the recent crisis, it declined from 41 to 37 billion by 5, just 4 billion. And also the support of the Gulf deposit helped the international reserve in Egypt.
Sir, what are the means of facing prices hike and controlling markets from the state and the citizens as well?
If we talk about the states, we need to support mainly industrial and agriculture sectors. And we need to attract more direct investment through some incentives, like more tax exemption, as we noticed yesterday, and to improve commodities quality according to European specifications. And for citizens, it's a big advice I would like to say. We need to rationalize consumption. And we need to look for local commodities instead of exported commodities.
Yeah.
And try to buy essentials and avoid luxury goods until the end of current crisis.
Yeah. How do you evaluate the role of the private sector in Egypt's economic process?
In the Egyptian economic process, the role of economic participation is about 30%. And now Egyptian government aim to raise the participation of private sector to 65% during the next 3 years. That will support size raise at GDP about 5 to 5%, and also will provide new opportunities of jobs and decreasing unemployment rate to be less than 7.4%. We need more participation at this crisis to support the Egyptian economy.
Right. Well, Dr. Ahmed Shawky, advisory member of Egyptian Center for Economic and Strategic Studies. Many thanks for your insight. And dear viewers, that brings us to the end of this edition of Cairo Local Time. Many thanks for watching and stay tuned for more coming up here in Nile TV International.